I have a confession to make. With the start of school, I've been thinking about this lately, but when I was in school, I did not love history. I thought some of the facts were interesting, but I've never been good at remembering dates and places, and I hated taking those history tests. But as I got into genealogy later in my life, I learned to change my feeling about history because history was really important. And today I want to talk to you about why history is important in family history. And I'm not talking about your family's history. You need to understand the social history in order to be a better researcher and understand your family. And it's going to open up additional records. I'm Aimee Cross, and I am here to help you take your genealogy to the next level. Understanding social history is going to make a difference in doing that. So let's dive in. All right, first off, why? Why does it even matter? Why do you even care what was happening? I don't know if you're like me. Sometimes I don't even want to read the news. I don't want to know. That's not what I do. I end up reading the news because I do want to know. But maybe your family members didn't know what was going on in the world, and maybe it didn't really matter to them. But understanding the events that were happening around them can help you better understand them and maybe what they've gone through. And that makes a big difference. It helps you attach heart to heart with these family members that you're related to. But let's talk a little bit more now about the records, because understanding what was happening in the area makes a huge difference in finding the records. Maybe your family member moved and you don't know why. Well, there could have been some kind of events that led to that move. Maybe there were economic events, or maybe there was a natural disaster, or maybe there was a world change like a world war. All of these things can affect your family's lives in such a way that would kind of necessitate a move. Sometimes you might want to know something because it may have affected where they went. For instance, if a couple married, but you're not finding their marriage record in the county where they lived, there could be some really good reasons for that. And by understanding what was happening around them, it could make a difference. Maybe it was the laws. Maybe in the nearby state or even nearby county, you could marry at a younger age without parent consent. Maybe your family lived in a rural area and there was a mountain range between them and their local courthouse, but a nearby courthouse was much easier to get to. Or maybe there was a river. And so that also affects time of year. If it were winter time, would that have affected their travel? If it were spring, could a river be much fuller and much more difficult to cross, and thereby driven them another direction to go ahead and get married? These things can really make a difference in finding those records. And sometimes you can find a record in a completely unexpected place because you understand some of these other reasons that could be affecting their decision-making process. When you understand their occupation, that can also lead you to additional facts. Like if they worked for the railroad, you might find them along that whole railroad line. If they were farm workers, then they may have moved. So these kinds of facts can make a huge difference and open up a world of things in your genealogy. So where do you find this information? All right, you don't want to go back to school again. And sometimes even that generic historical information isn't going to help you with what you're looking for in your family. So I'm going to give you a number of different places that you can go. First off, I want you to start in your census records. And the reason I want you to start in the census records is census records asked for somebody's race, which is going to completely affect things. It asked for their occupation. And in others, it asked whether or not they owned property, personal or real estate, and the amount or value of that property. That can tell you a lot of information about your ancestors. By looking at their neighbors and seeing the birthplaces of all of the different individuals that were enumerated in a particular location, you can see whether or not they may have been residing in an immigrant community. And if you're struggling with finding your ancestors' country of origin or more specific place of origin, maybe some of the other people that lived around them could give you clues because they probably traveled over together, or they may have. Another thing that can be on census records, particularly not those in the United States, but in places like Canada, they ask questions on somebody's religion, and that can tell you whether or not they were a particular religion, and then that can drive you to a lot of other records. You can look at maps and see nearby churches and things like that. Huge help there. You got to pay attention to those facts, and then you want to understand the history of that religion in that community. Now, one of the things that you can take a look at are, in the United States at least, are county histories. County histories are a great resource because they gave you not only biography information of individuals that lived in a community, and I've talked about them in my videos before for that information, but they also provide a great historical perspective. If you live in the United Kingdom, you might want to go to Genealogy. That has a lot of really great resources, including a gazetteer, which will help you with your mapping. Now, sometimes the best thing to do is to get a good overall view of what was going on at a particular time. And you can go to thepeoplehistory.com. That lets you look at things by decades, and that'll give you a great big picture view of what was going on. As we're driving down into those communities, besides those county histories, you want to be talking to county historical societies and reaching out to the librarians at local county libraries or city libraries. You also want to be diving into historical newspapers, because what's better way to see what was going on in the world than reading the paper at the time? So you definitely want to do that. You can also go to Google Scholar. Just type in Google Scholar, you'll find it, and you can enter in a location, and that will tell you about articles and things that have been written about a particular location. That can be helpful to you. You kind of have to search through a lot of other things, but it could really open up some interesting information for you. And then I would also encourage you to look for diaries of people that lived in that particular time and place, because even though that's not your family member, it's going to give you a clue as to the lives of somebody else that they may have even known. I've already talked about maps, and maps are wonderful for so many reasons. They can show you what kind of terrain your family lived in, and rivers and other things that were around your family. But you can also go to maps like the Sanborn map collection, where they actually tell you if your family lived in a brick house or in a wood house. They will show you what other things were around your family, including churches and other things like that. And then you also want to take a look at the city directories of the area where your family lived, because that's going to give you other clues. So often we go into those city directories and we just look for our family names. Flip through the pages. You're going to see about the churches. Sometimes there's maps in those as well. You're going to see a lot of really great things in those. So I really encourage you to dive in and really try to find out more about your family, not only to get to know them better, but also to find those records you might have missed. Now, these two videos are videos on newspapers because, like I said before, they're invaluable. The newspaper videos can really help you. The first one is about a free newspaper site that is wonderful in finding the newspaper publications that were created in a particular location. The second one are some search tips for kind of how you can navigate those a little bit better and find some things that maybe you aren't finding. Anyway, hope this helps you. Have a great day.